Okay. Good. Everybody seems to be back on.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Board of County Commissioners regular meeting for January 7th, 2025 already. If you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible. Here. Are there any additions to the agenda? Hearing none, we'll approve the agenda as it stands. Now's the time for constituent time. Anybody in the room that would like to address the board, now's your time. Okay. Anybody on the computer?
No, sir.
Okay. We'll go ahead with the, continue with the agenda. First up is County Clerk Terry Stevenson.
Good morning. I have the minutes for the December 17th, 2024 Board of County Commissioners regular meeting. Are there any changes, deletions?
I read through them and I have none.
I have none.
Nope, they look good. As always, Terry, I am amazed that you can fit that much blah, blah, blah on paper the way you do. So congratulations. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, County Assessor Jolene George. Got a presentation for us.
Thank you, Commissioner Lane. Shall I present from here?
That'd be fine.
That'll be fine.
Good morning, and I want to thank Commissioner Lane, Commissioner Suppes, and Commissioner Coons for supporting all of my staff, all of which who are here today, except for to recognize Jessie for her exemplary performance in our office. I want to also thank you guys for supporting opportunities like this to really highlight our employees that go above and beyond. And so with that, my name is Jolene George. I'm the Delta County Assessor, and I'd like to present Jessie Houghton. Do you mind just standing? Sure. Jessie is our Chief Appraiser. She has been with us for 9 years now, and she's an exemplary member of our staff. Whether she is working on developing appraisal models, which are used to value property across the county, working one-on-one with property owners, or working with our staff to train and mentor them through their appraisal licensing. Everything Jessie does, she approaches with common sense and technical expertise, and she just really excels in what she does. Jessie is licensed through the state of Colorado to conduct real estate appraisal work. And she has completed all of the education and experience requirements to test for and apply for her certified general appraisal license. And that license is actually the highest level of licensure you can obtain in the state of Colorado. So it's quite an accomplishment. And I know she's excited to see that through. So it's awesome. She also has been an instrumental part of training our appraisal staff through the attainment of their state licensure. And she develops really good relationships with our members. So one of the big things that is important to me in my first term is to build employee retention and build experience. And Jessie's a key part of our accomplishment of that mission. So I want to give her recognition for that. Yeah, absolutely. Bottom line is Jessie is a great appraiser. She really cares about what she does. I think she deserves this recognition. And she also cares about how the work she does impacts the people of Delta County. So as an employer or anyone in my position, that's about as good as you can get to have someone who actually really does care and enjoys what they do. So congratulations, Jessie. Thank you.
We've got a little something here for you, Jessie, if you'd come up.
Wayne, you better get up here too.
Yeah. Little something to help you out. Yeah. Okay. Thanks
Yes,
again.
Okay.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just your professionalism makes a difference, you guys. And I'll say this, the whole department, the attention to detail and professionalism sets a real standard for Delta County. Because it not affects just everybody, it affects us too. We live here also, and we appreciate the hard work and detail you put into your days every day. So thank you, and Jesse, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's always nice when we can recognize an employee for their dedication and service and in Delta County. Okay. Next up, board's consideration and appointment of Mark Rover as the Delta County Director of the Board of Directors of the Colorado River Water Conservation District.
I'll take that. Former Delta County Commissioner Mark Robler has been serving on the Board of Directors of the Colorado River Water Conservation District. I think this is completing his second term here, and they are 3-year terms.
It's just actually completing his first term.
First term, okay. I've attended both virtually and in person a couple of these meetings, and he has been an excellent representative for us. It would be my motion to reappoint Mark Rober for a 3-year term ending in January 2028.
I second that motion.
Motion and second on the floor. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye, so done. Thank you.
And I'll work with you.
Okay. Next up, board's consideration and appointment of library board trustees to serve 4-year terms, Lysandre Barley and Cammie Collins.
So this is always interesting to me. This is a little quirk in the state statutes, in my opinion, because the statutes don't actually require the board to make these appointments. It says the board of commissioners can, but it's up to the library board to fill these spots. So this has always been one of those things that I found interesting in the statutes. But this recommendation came to us from the library board, which is statutory. And so I will make the motion that we appoint Lysandre Barley and Cammie Collins to 2 4-year terms on the Delta County Library Board.
Second.
Motion and second on the floor. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye, so done. Thank you. Next on is Lindsay with our schedule for the BOCC.
So today, for this meeting, there is the Republican meeting from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Surface Creek Church. Tuesday, January 14th at 8 to 8:30, we have the swearing in for Commissioner-elect Fuller and Commissioner Coons, Delta County Courthouse in Delta. On January 14th from 9 to 9:30, the 2025 County Reorganization meeting here at 560 Dodge Street. Thursday, January 16th, 11:30 to 3, the Tri-County meeting here at 560 Dodge Street. Tuesday, January 21st, 8:30 to noon, Board of County Commissioners regular scheduled meeting, 560 Dodge Street. Tuesday, January 21st, 1:30 to 3:30 is a work session for Road and Bridge here at 560 Dodge. Tuesday, January 21st, 3:30 to 5 is a Board of Health here at 560 Dodge. Wednesday, January 22nd, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. OP reminder and info gathering for GTX. That will be at the Montrose Event Center. Wednesday, January 22nd, 11 to 2. the UVWUA Task Force meeting, number 9, the hybrid meeting. Friday, January 31st, 12 to 1 p.m. That's the 7th Judicial District Chief Judge Jackson meeting in the Montrose County. Don, did I miss anything?
Yeah, I think we're okay on my schedule.
What about our AGNC legislative updates? Those are usually Thursday mornings at 8:30.
And then on the 14th, what time is our special meeting?
The 14th, the reorganization meeting is from 9 to 9:30.
Okay.
Are we doing an executive session following that?
Which one?
On the 14th?
14th, we'll do an executive session.
Okay.
On the 14th, we'll do what time?
It's just part of the meeting.
And on the 16th, we got a tri-county at 9 o'clock.
And I don't know if any of you are planning, but the chief judge's meeting on the 31st in Montrose, but it does have a virtual option as well.
Are you gonna go to that?
Yeah.
Okay, because I'll be in Denver for CCI.
Just to clarify, on the 16th, that tri-county meeting, I have at 11:30.
Change that to 9 if you would, please.
To
1. And then you had something on the 22nd at 10. I didn't catch that.
is OP reminder and info gathering for GTX.
I have no idea what that is.
Neither do I. It's at the Montrose Event Center. On your calendars. I will try and figure out what that is. Get back to you.
I am doing the UVWA one still. This should be one of the last.
I'll figure that out.
I think it's the one of the wildfire like operating plans.
Mike, are you gonna go to GOP tonight?
Yep.
Be there.
Okay,
I've got an FFA meeting I have to attend.
okay. I'll read the jail report for Monday, December 23rd, 2024. Delta County Detention Facility Population Count Report. Male inmates county jail 26, female inmates county jail for 6. Male inmates Department of Corrections 3, female inmates Department of Corrections 2, for a total of 37. Average daily inmate population for the week of 12/16/24 through 12/23/24 was 48.5. Delta County Detention Facility Population Count Report from Monday, December 30th, 2024. Male inmates county jail 29, female inmates county jail 7, male inmates Department of Corrections 3, female inmates Department of Corrections 2, for a total of 41. The average daily inmate population for the week of 12/23/24 through 12/30/24 was 44.79. For Sunday, January 5th, Delta County Detention Facility Population Count Report. Male inmates county jail 33, female inmates county jail 6, male inmates Department of Corrections 4, female inmates Department of Corrections 2, for a total of 45. Average daily inmate population for the week of 12/29/24 through 1/5/25 was 48.11. Next up is 9 o'clock, the Delta Health Foundation update from Jessica Shelton. So we'll take a short break and we'll come back at 9 o'clock.
I've got one more thing, Commissioner, for our calendar. January 22nd, 4:30 p.m., Heritage Hall is the CDOT public meeting on the Highway 92. I'll put that on there in case more than one of us is there.
Okay. If there's nothing else, we'll take a short recess. Thank you. Okay, welcome back to the Board of County Commissioners meeting. We have a little presentation we'd like to present to Commissioner Suppes here.
Well, everybody should know, this is Don Suppes' last official county commissioner meeting. And we surprised him a bit here with his family joining us. Don, would you like to introduce your family?
I would love to. You know, they're the ones that kept me going a lot of times through this. And this is my beautiful wife, Beth. This is Christian, Harrison, getting ready to turn 15 this month in another week or so. And this is Kaysen. You wave, hi, Kaysen. They see you on the screen up there.
Push that silver button, please. Well, I'm gonna stand over here and read this. Don, your leadership in Delta County has made a huge difference. In the last 8 years, the accomplishments that you in Delta County have made will last for generations, and we can't thank you enough. The reason I've asked Beth to bring your whole family here is because they need to hear this too. Now I'm gonna read off some of these things, and we're gonna have Leona and others speak to this. But starting with the courthouse remodel, you took on a remodel of the courthouse that was built in 1984.
Well, the jail 84, the courthouse 58.
58.
59, it's his old design.
No small task. And to get it done and under budget was amazing. The construction of the Human Services Building, even with the Christmas Eve flood that you guys helped with. The remodel of the new Assessors Building. The remodel of this building, the administration building that used to be the Human Services Building. Here's one. A negotiation with the City of Delta and Delta County Library Board for the purchase and remodel of the new Delta Library, which is the old City Market Building, including a transfer of a historic Carnegie Library to Delta County for the new Sheriff's Office. I think you earned a lot of gray hairs. The negotiation. Let's remodel. You remodeled that Sheriff's Office into what is now a facility that will last decades. And it looks fabulous. The remodel of Delta County Jail, which is ongoing right now. The modification and update of the 2022 land use code. We all went through that, and that was not easy. I'm sure your family remembers that too. But we brought it forward to something that's very usable, and your fingerprints on that are evident. I appreciate that. And you also served as chairman of the Board of County Commissioners in 2019. And again in 2022. It's leadership that has brought Delta County to where we are today. I can't thank you enough. Your mentorship for me, and I know for Craig, is meaningful. And I thank you. We have a plaque here. And it says, in appreciation of Don Suppes for your service as Delta County Commissioner, District 2. You built bridges of progress, not for yourself, but for those who follow. That's a quote from William A. Dromgoole. Your dedication has laid a strong foundation for future generations. Thank you, Don.
Before I start, I have to make a plug for Christian and Harrison. Christian needs drone. Harrison needs the controller for the drone. Don, what I have for you is ultimate respect. As the accountant for Delta County, I think all employees and all citizens should know that as the general contractor for all of the work that's been done over the few years you've been in charge of all of this, You have saved the taxpayers millions of dollars that they don't even know. So I commend you on that. That really made my finances look good. So, as Wendell said before, this used to be the Human Services Building. And about 30 years ago, 30 years ago, you weren't even around. The computer room used to be right behind where John's sitting now. And that was my office. And I walked into the computer room and there was a ladder there and there was some guy stuck up in the ceiling. And all I thought was, nice bump. The other kid comes down off the ladder and thus began my cougar days. Thank you, Don, for everything. You've been an easy commissioner to talk to, and I just thank you for everything that you've done for Delta County.
I'd like to add also that working with Don has been a pleasure. I've learned a lot about reading blueprints, about construction, terms. A lot of it is, you can't repeat, but the terms have been very, colorful and helpful. I appreciate his patience and working with me. He's had to fill me in on some items throughout the years, and I appreciate that. I know that he is a good family man, has a good family, and I know these teenage years coming up with the boys will be a pleasurable experience for him, just as you were a pleasurable experience for your parents when you were a teenager. Anyway, thank you very much for everything that you've done for Delta County. And like Leon said, you have saved Delta County millions of dollars just with your expertise in construction, how to negotiate, people, how to get the best deal, know when somebody isn't quite doing what they said and how to motivate them that. And that's a very good talent to have. And I wish you the best in your private life and coming up in these next few years, and just hope the best for you. Again, thank you very much.
When I started to think about running for county clerk, you took my husband and I to lunch and you gave us some amazing pointers on what politics was all about. Came to fruition, and I felt like you were a great support for me to get where I am now, and I appreciate that very much. I think you've been a great sounding board for me, not only as a commissioner, but me being a taxpayer and being able to go to you with any concerns that I might have had, and I appreciate that as well. You've worn many different hats, and you've always done an excellent job in all of those positions that you've held, and wish you the best and enjoy your family, getting your family back. We're ready. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh,
Okay.
nothing prepared, Don. So Don, I've appreciated working with you. Of course, I've known you for many, many decades and that sort of thing. I had thought about creating a list like Wendell did of all the different real estate projects, but kind of going through those. And I'm also thinking, well, each one of those, there was 10 or 12 different steps involved in those. And I've had the pleasure of working with you on many of those transfers and leases and purchases and sales. And I think the assessor's building over here was part of that as well, right? Don, what I've appreciated is professionally, working with you as county attorney, is you've been clear on what you're asking. That hasn't always been easy, and you've asked quite a bit of my office, and that's perfectly fine. But you've always been clear about what it is, and that's in that sense has made our job in my office more straightforward, and I appreciate that. So, and really, I think you can look at your time with the county. We see a theme here, but your service above and beyond all your hard work has really made for decades, I think the county will benefit from that, and primarily this campus, but not only just the campus, the physicality of what we're sitting in right now, but your example of service to the county as a institution, but also the county as all our citizens. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate the kind words. This is a bit of a surprise. I wasn't expecting this. I serving as commissioner has been one of the great honors of my life. I absolutely adore the people I've worked with, the fellow commissioners I've served with. I appreciate my family's support over all these years. And, you know, there's things I would do different, but yet I wouldn't change a thing. Yeah, I've told everybody that, you know, half jokingly, that this job is 85% the best job you'll ever have and 15% waiting to die. And, you know, those 15% I can relate back to the land use code and all the, you know, the people yelling and screaming and calling bad names. I can relate back to COVID times. You know, that was one of the toughest times as a commissioner to serve. But yet I still think that that's probably one of the greatest accomplishments of Delta County of how we handled COVID. You know, we were ahead of everybody else. We saw through it and we put Delta County, we saved businesses in Delta County because of the way we operated during COVID, where a lot of the other communities were killing businesses. Our businesses survived and flourished. And I thank, you know, the board members I served with, the staff that I worked with for making that happen. You know, I can't go this without thanking Doug Ashley and Mark Rober. You know, they were great mentors for me. And I truly appreciate their friendship and mentorship as we went through. Wendell and Mike, serving with you guys has been great, and I truly appreciate it. And just thank you guys. I'm 8 years goes by really quick. You know, blink of an eye, it's gone. You know, I think, how did it go so fast? And then I start thinking about all these things we've done in the last 8 years. I'm like, wow, how did I get that done in 8 years too? So, but it was with the help of staff, you know, with, you know, like John said, folks in the attorney's office, you know, I know they dreaded me coming in the door there for a while. But, you know, it was their push too that got things done. You know, every department in this county help push things through, help things get done. And it's been a team effort. It truly has. But I want to thank you all. This was very kind. This was a surprise, and thank you all.
Well, get a picture?
You're in the middle with your family.
Come on, guys.
Push me.
How are we going to see Jason?
I'm gonna hold him. Come here. Good. Here we go. Here, Christian, get on this side of me.
Maybe step on the other side.
Okay. Every seat.
Stand up straight. Oh, you.
Yeah, I'm gonna take that just. 2, 3. Perfect, thank you.
Okay, it's cool.
All right.
Right. Hey, buddy. See you.
Yeah, you're.
Go to school.
Well,
I'm out.
right. Your personal stuff, right?
Yeah, I usually. Thanks, Beth. I sent her a note. I thought she'd be here by now.
She's not on Zoom or anything, is she?
Yeah, he was here first. If that's not who you're.
Probably a good idea.
We'll take a short break and waiting for our next item. And we'll be back in a few minutes. Let's go 10 minutes and see where we're at. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. It's 9:30. Next up, we have Emergency Manager Chris Stewart for the 2024 Delta County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan. Thank you for joining us, Chris.
Good morning. Shoot this over to Lindsay real quick so she can put it. Do you guys have it in your packets currently?
Yes.
We do.
Mhm.
So the hazard mitigation plan, is one of the required plans that emergency management has to do in the county every 5 years. It's one of those plans that's mandated by FEMA. We started this process back in 2022. And it's been a long 2 years working with the contractor and our stakeholders and the public and stuff to update the hazard mitigation plan. So I just want to go through kind of what we've gone over in the last 2 years to get here, and then request to formally adopt it so we can submit that to FEMA to move forward with this plan. So I'll just kind of hit the summary on the slides that are in your slide deck. So our last plan was adopted January 15th, 2019 by FEMA. We actually approved it on January 7th, 2019, 5 years ago. Our plan expired January 14th of 2024. And because of that, just meant that we had a gap where we couldn't apply to some FEMA grants over the last year while we were working on the hazard mitigation plan update. The plan's been paid for completely by a hazard mitigation grant program through FEMA. We awarded over $107,000 for that plan with a 10% local match, which required us to match in kind a little over $10,000 in kind time. As of third quarter report last year, I'm showing that we have met over $18,000 of in kind through time participants from not only my time and input, but also other staff here at the county, the municipalities, and the fire districts. Our contractor for the plan was WSP. The contract for them was $89,945. So we're well within budget with our grant. We kicked off our planning process back in December of 2022. Held 3 planning meetings with stakeholders between December and May of 2023. And then we moved into public feedback gathering, sent out a survey, and there's a chart later on in the presentation for you guys to see what the community responded as their priorities. And then at the end, after we had a draft plan, we presented that to the public over a series of 3 public meetings, which many of you attended, so thank you, even though we had low turnout in October of last year. So our participating jurisdictions, we have not only the county, but all 6 of the municipalities, the school district, and all 5 of the fire protection districts. And basically, by participating in the hazard mitigation plan, it qualifies them for pre and post disaster, as well as the county pre and post disaster funding through FEMA. So like Town of Cedar and Town of Orchard, Paonia, correction, are wanting to apply for the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities Grant, the BRIC grant, to fund water and other infrastructure. And now that we're renewing this plan, it makes them eligible to pursue that funding. Our goals were to reduce hazards to the people, property, economy, and the environment of Delta County from the impacts of natural hazards, protect critical infrastructure and lifelines from hazards, improve community resilience to power outages, wildfire, and the wildland urban interface and flooding, and implement mitigation actions. And why we need to have a mitigation plan. By adopting this, once we get that FEMA letter back after we submit the hazard adoption resolutions and the final plan to them, everyone will be eligible to apply for that funding pre and post disaster. We can use the hazard mitigation plan to inform land use, zoning, capital improvement planning, fire mitigation, flood control regulations, and more. That's mainly where the municipalities are using it, is for capital improvements and things like sewer, stormwater improvements to mitigate those hazards to the municipalities. Even though it's long, I know Commissioner Lane, you always appreciate the length of the documents that we generate. It's only 384 pages this year. The 2019 plan was over 640 pages. And that was in 2 volumes because they repeated a lot of the same information for each of the municipalities. So this year I said, no, we're gonna do one hazard profile, cut out the redundancy. The last contractor in 2018, FEMA actually said this is redundant, and if FEMA says it's redundant, it's redundant. So we cut out a lot, and we still added in 3 new hazards that we profiled. We added infrastructure failure, cyber attack, and severe summer weather to the list of hazards that we profiled this time. Additionally, you've heard me talk that we've had to add some new requirements in the plan for FEMA. That's new 2023 guidelines required that we do an analysis of natural, cultural, and historical sites within the county. We started a detailed list and did as much as we could, but that'll be an ongoing process over the next 5 years that we continue to work on. And then the hope is to map that through GIS so that those sites are on GIS maps. So if we have a wildfire or flood, we can protect them. We had to list and describe how we've done mitigation actions in the past and how we'll do that in the future, and how we'll involve the public, including disadvantaged citizens, non-English speaking citizens, access and functional needs, into the planning process as we implement these projects. So a few of the highlights from the plan. Obviously, it's 384 pages. I'm not going to go through the whole plan. We'd be here all day. Our hazards that we went through were dam failure, infrastructure failure, severe summer and winter weather, cyber attack, wildfire, flood, drought, and geologic hazards, which covers everything from landslides, mudslides, avalanches, etc. When we did that public survey early on in the plan, the public was asked, what are your concerns? What do we need to mitigate in Delta County? And they said wildfire, fuels treatment, water conservation, getting generators for critical facilities, which, as we've done other planning updates in the last few years, that's come to the top for fire, EMS, law enforcement, elected officials. Generators at critical infrastructure and facilities is a top priority, not only in Delta County, but also the region. And then improving reliability of communications and evacuation routes. Some of the data that went into the plan was social vulnerability. There's a chart talks about poverty rate, unemployment, housing, cost of living, health insurance. And as you can see, Delta County has a high social vulnerability index, which is not news to any of the commissioners. But it's factors that were taken into effect during the planning process. So in total, the WSP's hazard analysis identified that we have $4.77 billion of property at risk in Delta County to natural hazards, including $1.92 billion in personal property contents. The major hazards that we profiled: dam failure. We have over just under 10,000, about 9,470 people living in a dam inundation area within the county, which equates to over $1.44 billion of buildings. Obviously, no surprise, City of Delta is the highest because of the confluence of 2 rivers. Unincorporated Delta County, it's next highest, and then the town of Cedar is the 3rd highest there for dam failure risk for property loss. And over 200 critical facilities are in a dam inundation zone within the county. The slide that shows the high hazard and significant hazard dams. These are dams located throughout the county. Red is high hazard, which means that if the dam were to fail when completely full on a blue sky day, there is a probable loss of life. It's not that those dams are going to fail or at risk of failure. It's just that if one of those dams were to fail, that's the risk associated with those dams. And then significant hazard dams are in orange, and there are no probable loss of human life, but it would cause significant economic loss, environmental damage, and disruption of critical lifelines. Not shown on this map is obviously the Aspinall unit, which is Blue Mesa, Mara Point, and Crystal, which are huge dams located in Gunnison County.
But that dam failure recognition was placed in this plan.
Yes.
Okay.
Flooding, as we know, we did extensive planning for flooding 2 years ago. It's a risk that's possible to occur with impacts. If flooding does occur, it's not something that's guaranteed to occur. In Delta County, typically it's to snow runoff and spring melting or flash flooding. Unincorporated Delta County has $28.99 million and over 134 billion buildings at risk to flooding. And what WSP did is they did their analysis based on the preliminary FEMA floodplain mapping that they're working on finalizing, which should be, the new FEMA LOMRs should be adopted this spring, sometime in 2025. I'm still working with the Water Conservation Board to figure out when that's gonna happen. The 0.2% flood risk on unincorporated Delta County drops to $7.7 million and 27 buildings. And then wildfire, obviously the most prevalent and well-known natural hazard that we face here in Delta County, likely to occur each year and can still have a critical impact on the community. We have over 22,000 people that live in the wildland urban interface with $4.1 billion at risk and 34 critical facilities within the county at risk of wildfire. The Cedars Fire Protection District has $1.4 billion alone at risk. So the data for the wildfire will be rolled into the Community Wildfire Protection Plan, which we're going to start updating this year. That'll hopefully save us some process there. Robbie and I have been talking, and we'll be pursuing a community wildfire defense grant to the U.S. Forest Service to help pay for that plan update. So more to come on that. There is a map that shows the wildland urban interface, like a heat map showing the population density in the packet. So the meat and potatoes of the plan was the mitigation actions. This is what we've discussed of how we're gonna, each jurisdiction, do over the next 5 years to mitigate these natural hazards. Delta County has a total of 39 mitigation actions in the plan. Across all jurisdictions, we have a total of 139 mitigation actions. A lot of them were working together collaboratively. FEMA came back because they have very strict standards on mitigation actions, and they were going to require the fire protection districts to do flood mitigation and dam inundation and geologic, which is outside the scope of a fire protection district. So they came back and said, hey, if you guys work together, do public outreach, public events, campaigns, the fire protection districts don't have to do all these other things. So that's a theme that's within the plan, is trying to get the fire departments, municipalities, and the county to all work together for outreach, education. In the mitigation actions, there is a separate document that I gave to Terry for the packet. That's just a summary of the 39 mitigation actions that we agreed upon for the county. Those are not requirements. We don't get penalized by FEMA or the state if we don't meet those. Those are goals that we want to try and achieve in the next 5 years. We didn't achieve all of them in the last 5 years, but a lot of these are contingent on getting grants and stuff. So just some of the municipalities think that this is a fiscal impact that's a requirement, and it's not, it's a goal. So those mitigation actions boil down to GIS mapping of hazards, more public outreach, wildfire training exercises with our first responders and agencies, trying to purchase generators for critical shelters and critical facilities, doing more focused wildfire mitigation, updating that Lockhart Road Bridge out there by the state prison. Floodplain regulation updates, which CWCB is moving forward with, and adopting those this year. Trying to expand stream gauge expansion of those streams that don't have stream gauges on them. Enhancing cybersecurity for the county. Working on upgrades for dispatch and 911 redundancy and resiliency. Working on wildfire evacuation routes and signage. Road and Bridge identified several roads that they want to work on geologic hazards for mitigation work and road culvert upgrades over the next 5 years. So the next steps of where we're at today is to formally adopt the plan. FEMA has returned the plan to us pending local adoption. So each of the jurisdictions has to adopt the plan. I already presented to the town of Cedar Ridge, have the school district tomorrow. Next week is Thursday's Orchard City, and next week is down in Paonia. Once we get all those back, I'll package them up, send it back to FEMA, and then we'll get a letter, and then our plan will be good for 5 years from the date of that letter. And then that's the time that we have to work on implementing the mitigation actions. And then starting this spring is the update to the community wildfire protection plan. Any questions?
Good presentation, thank you. As always, very thorough. Dot your i's, cross your t's, down in the weeds information, which FEMA requires, and we appreciate that very much.
Is it required that the municipalities also adopt this, or is it?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's why I'm doing similar presentations to each of the town boards as well.
Okay.
Well, Chris, I want to congratulate you on getting it down to under 400 pages. Emergency management planning is part of that 15% that I mentioned earlier. And I'm glad that you're in this role to pay attention. You've done an amazing job. Over the years, I've met and talked to a lot of emergency managers across the state. And some of them are almost, waiting for the phone to ring for that emergency because they want to go do something crazy. And you're not that way. You're trying to make the plan, lead from behind. And in emergency management, that's not common. And I want to thank you for that, because that mentality is what's needed when those emergencies come, as you well know, and you've been through a couple of them now. And I can tell you, you've done an amazing job. So thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I know this is your last meetings, and you've been involved in this process in the public meetings, so that's part of the reason why I want to get it on. So you can help sign off on it.
You could have waited till the next one. It would have been fine, but that's okay. I appreciate it, Chris.
So then I emailed each of you this morning, and if we can do a hard copy of the resolution, if that's what you guys so wish to do. And then there's, to meet ADA requirements, to package it for FEMA. There'll be an e-signed version in your inbox as well.
We'll do both.
Now on the resolution, in our packet, it's 2025 R02.
We didn't have a resolution prior to this, Chris. We thought we were gonna have one this morning.
Oh. So do we need to change them? We can change I can resend the e-sign. We can change the number on this to 1.
We can pass it as one.
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna echo what Commissioner Suppes said, Chris. I really appreciate your ongoing pursuit of this and persistence in getting it done. Therefore, I'll say I'm gonna move that the board adopt resolution number 2025 R001, a resolution adopting the 2024 Delta County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan.
I'll second that motion.
Motion and second on the floor. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. So done. Thank you.
Thank you.
You'll give us a new hard copy?
I did the hard copy. I'll just change the cover, and then I'll just ignore that email, and I'll cancel that one and resend you one.
Perfect.
Just one.
Sounds good.
Here, you never tried to do fish.
So any of you folks that plan on speaking during this land use issue, if you'd please sign in.
We will, it starts at 10 o'clock to finish, right, Chris? So we'll take a short break and we'll reconvene at 10 o'clock.
Anybody else?
Okay, it's 10 o'clock. We'll go back on the agenda. Next up is planning, the project 24-080, the Hawk vacation request to remove lot 3 of the Hawk family minor subdivision from the subdivision. I'll turn it over to you, Sean.
Thank you, Commissioner. The applicants for this vacation of the subdivision, Daryl and Christine Hawk, are here present, and they submitted a letter of intent and a petition along with a vacation application and fees for the vacation of their lot 3 from the Hawk family minor subdivision. According to the letter of intent, the reason to vacate lot 3 is that the Hawks believe that their lot was included in the Hawk family minor subdivision erroneously when it was recorded back in 1998. This slide here that is up now is the 1998 plat of the original Hawk family minor subdivision that created lots 1, 2, and 3, and that established utility easements, lot boundaries, dedicated county roads, and plat notes that restrict future development in each lot within the subdivision. Lot 3 has been replatted multiple times in the last 20 years, changing the legal descriptions of the lots within the subdivision and carrying forward the various plat notes that restricted lots within the subdivision from certain development. Next slide here shows the 1999 boundary adjustment made between lots 1 and 3. Next slide here shows the February 2004, there was a re-subdivision of lots 1 and 2. And then finally, in November 2004, there was a re-subdivision of lots 2 and 3, which reflects the current boundaries of lot 3, and its increase from 38.48 acres to 62.91 acres. Like I said earlier, the Hawks state in their letter of intent that they were originally deeded 40 acres in 1987. This is a survey of that and the recorded deed reception number for that deeded 40 acres in 1987, making this parcel its own entity. And then in 1998, the Hawk sisters created the Hawk family minor subdivision, and their 40-acre parcel was included in the subdivision as lot 3. The Hawks contend that their property was mistakenly lumped into the subdivision erroneously as a result of an oversight, changing it from an independent parcel to a lot in the Hawk family subdivision. The retired surveyor, Mr. Geddes, has provided a letter to that effect that was in your packet. In accordance with the vacation application, the Hawks also submitted a petition dated on November 26th that states that the subdivision to be vacated is the Hawk minor subdivision, with the properties being involved 43052 Cottonwood Creek Road and 43440 Cottonwood Creek Road, which is the Hawks address, lot 3. This petition references the above mentioned 40-acre deed they previously showed, and the last replat of the Hawk subdivision, which is the final replat that extended their acreage out. And includes the reason for petition being that Darrell and Christy Hawk are petitioning to be removed from the subdivision. The Hawks have signed the petition, however, the landowner of 43052 Cottonwood Creek Road, in other words, Lot 1, has not signed the petition. So staff is recommending that the board deny the request to vacate Lot 3 of the Hawk Family Minor subdivision for the following reasons. There is consistent recorded documentation of Hawks development and redevelopment of the subdivision over many years. The Hawks and others have benefited over decades from having this subdivision in place. Other property owners in the subdivision, and perhaps others, have relied for decades on the subdivision. There are mutual benefits and restrictions to any subdivision. And other property owners in the subdivision have potentially curtailed otherwise legal actions because of the subdivision restrictions. And lastly, it's problematic to set precedent allowing developers to unilaterally vacate a subdivision that has been in place for decades. As I mentioned before, Darrell and Christine Hawk are here with their, I think they have legal representation with them as well. And our county surveyor, Schaaf, is here. And also attorney representing Dean Crystal, the Crystal Family Trust. I believe Ryan Callahan is here present. Mr. Crystal is the owner of 2 parcels adjacent to and neighboring the Hawks property. Mr. Callahan has provided a written public comment on behalf of Mr. Crystal to be placed on the record of his vacation petition, which I believe you all received yesterday. We received it Friday late afternoon last week, but we gave it to you yesterday. So that's all for my comments, and turn it back to Commissioner Lane.
Okay, thank you. Good presentation. Do we have the clipboard in the crowd, or the people that want to sign up? Yeah. Oh, he's signing. Well, Darrell and Christy Hawk, would you like to address the board? Okay. If you could sit right there by the microphone and state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Darrell Hawk. I live at 43440 Cottonwood Creek Road, Crawford, Colorado, obviously. What I'd like to say is my folks bought a ranch in 1951, and I've lived there my entire life on that same property. My parents deeded us our share of the land in 1987. Since that time, my wife and I have acquired some more land, another large property as well. We now own over 300 acres there, and we're pursuing a wedding venue event center, not only as a way of sustainability for our future generations of our family, but also as an affordable gathering place for people in our community, if they would like to use that. To that end, we have just closed on a conservation easement, putting the rest of our property in a conservation easement to preserve it for future generations, again, of the family. That's with the Colorado Land Trust. We are doing our best to follow the proper proceedings as laid out by the county. It has been rather difficult, but we would appreciate your consideration in this matter. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Just for purposes of your record, my name is Ben Wagner. I'm with the law firm of Wagner, Lane and Evans over in Grand Junction. Used to be Young and Hawkinsmith, if you guys remember that old law firm. The address is 743 Horizon Court, Suite 200 over there. And I just want to say a couple things in regard to what we're here today. I think there's a lot of people here in opposition to the eventual wedding venue that these guys are planning on building. But what we're here about today is vacating this lot or taking the slot out of the subdivision. So that's the consideration for today. And I want to kind of correct some of the comments by Sean. I'm not sure what your last name is, so I apologize. Gardner. Mr. Gardner said that these plats restrict development. That's not correct. What the plat actually note says from the 2004, it says lot 2 within the subdivision has been approved for one single family dwelling, including mobile homes, unless otherwise restricted. And any further development on any lot will require the purchase of an additional water tap and septic system. So the plat itself doesn't restrict development. That's important to note. So what was said here today about restrictions on development isn't accurate. The plat itself does allow for development. And what has happened over the course of time with the Hawks is that they've gone down the road to try to develop and build a small wedding venue so people in this county can have weddings. And they're not talking about building a nightclub or doing anything crazy like that, but just a small wedding venue. And in order to do that, they have to have water. And they've applied for a water permit, I believe, with the domestic water company, and that was rejected. They said, no, you can't use it for commercial purposes. So they were told that they could drill a well to do this. And then they were told that they couldn't do that to get the wedding venue unless they were out of the subdivision because of this note on the plat requiring water tap. That's essentially what they're here about today is getting themselves out of the subdivision. As you heard from Sean, that the original surveyor, Mr. Geddes, said this was sort of done in error. And he also notes that this 2004 plat note was also done in error, and that wasn't the intention of the parties. And frankly, the lot itself is sustainable on its own. It's above 35 acres. At the time it was included in this was 40 acres, and it's only grown in size. So it itself is a large parcel of property that could require or would be allowed for further development. But more importantly, this note also goes on to say that the restriction can only be removed by formal action of the Board of County Commissioners. And so that's essentially what they're asking you guys to do today, is to take this out of the subdivision so they stand alone, and then they can go down the road of the development process later. And during that process, people have a chance to object to it and do what they need to do. But this is kind of first step. And throughout the process, these guys have gone, and Mr. Callahan did a nice job of putting all this stuff in his correspondence about the comments that the Hogg family had received from the Planning Commission and various Delta County officials about, hey, you can't do it this way, so why don't you go ahead and vacate the subdivision? Hey, if you want to do this, you need to vacate this and do it this way. That's all in Mr. Callahan's letter. It kind of lays that out. And so they've been told to do this, and now they're being told that you can't do it this way. At least this board has the opportunity now to sort of kind of correct the errors that are being done here within the Delta County amongst the staff, to sort of correct this and let them move on through the planning process and get this done. And throughout the years, I've kind of sat up here through various meetings for clients that have been trying to develop chicken farms or various things. And I've heard from this board that we want people to have beneficial use of their property. We want them to be able to use their property. We want to develop Delta County. We want to be able to have people grow this economic base here. And by allowing this is kind of a step in the right direction. And so I think with that, I think we'd ask you to approve it, because it's pretty clear from Mr. Geddes that this was just a simple error. It should have never been done. And now you all have a chance to rectify that. And surrounding communities, surrounding properties that aren't within the subdivision really don't have a say-so on what goes here. The only other lot that would really matter would be the lot that's owned by Mr. and Mr. Shelley, and I believe they're here. But under your own regulations, they don't necessarily need to approve this, because what your regulations say is that 100% of the people that went out have to agree to it, which you have, and 50% of the subdivision, and that's what you have with this lot. So they meet all the requirements of the land use regulations to get out. And what other landowners have to say about vacating or getting this lot out of the subdivision really doesn't matter. Lot 1 dealer's lot may have some say so, but even they don't necessarily need their approval to get out of this lot under your own regulations.
Thank you. Now, do we have that clipboard handy?
So. What's that? Yeah. Yeah, I don't have to. Since the Crystal attorney was, wrote us a letter, I think we should let him
Okay,
talk first and then.
then go down the
through
list,
from there.
okay? The Crystal's attorney, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. Okay.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name's Ryan Callahan with Connerly and Callahan in Montrose. I represent Dean Crystal through his trust and an entity that own adjacent property to the Hawk parcel. I just wanted to submit formally my correspondence, which it sounds like you all reviewed. I appreciate the time that you gave that. It was a little lengthy, but there were a number of objections that we had to the current application. So more than anything, I'd be willing to field questions today in terms of what I wrote down and our legal position on the matter.
In your letter, you talk about, covenants. Subdivision covenants, HOA covenants. Are you referring to this plat note as a covenant then? Is that, or are you producing some formal covenants or?
I don't believe there are any. So the matter that I see is that it's two separate issues. There is no HOA that I've seen or set of covenants that would be able to reduce the amount of votes necessary to just unilaterally lift a covenant. Separate and apart, there is a covenant and a restriction in the form of the plat note that I assert will continue to be binding on the land, run with the land as an appurtenant covenant, and regardless of the vacation efforts, just like a utility provider would continue to have access just because Lot 3 vacates the subdivision, the county road dedications move forward, so too with the plat notes. And so this is in essence a futile application for what now they've uncovered as the true intention for what they're doing, which is they're not trying to seek to merely vacate from the subdivision for semantics. It's for a future effort and to get to them to a place where they can then submit the conditional use permit. And in that sense, it doesn't get them there because the plat note will continue to be enforceable by at least Lot 1 and the Shelleys.
But Mr. Callahan, the issue in front of us today is not the conditional use permit. It is whether this lot qualifies for a vacation or not.
Which is then my second point in my correspondence, which is that I don't believe the vacation process is the proper mechanism of removing a plat restriction. The letter of intent requirement in the land code is there for a reason. And it's for the applicant to set forth for the board the reasons for why they seek doing it. It's not just out of thin air that they seek to vacate from a subdivision that's been existing for over 25 years and that people have relied on in terms of those restrictions. It's really for the next step, but nonetheless, to lift a plat restriction, in my reading of the land use code, takes the replat process. And the replat process requires 100% approval of the subdivision, which the Hawks don't have. And so in that sense, what they seek to do, get free of the plat restriction through the vacating process, I don't believe they've triggered the right process under the land use code. Commissioner.
And we'll give the Hawkses and his attorney to rebut after everybody has their say in this, if we, and you also.
Sure. And of course, personally, I don't have objections one way or the other to an event venue. I live in outside of Montrose. And so I'm sure there's many people that will speak today in terms of their personal objection and their observational objection. My purpose on behalf of Mr. Crystal is to lay out for the commissioners where I see the flaws in the current application. And so I appreciate the time that you've given me thus far.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go down the list, Dave and Kathy Shell.
Hello. I'm feeling a little lonely as lot 1. I'm gonna read my letter. You guys want a copy of it or?
That'd be great.
Okay. My name's Dave Shelley, and my wife Kathy and I live at 43052 Cottonwood Creek Road. We are lot 1 in the Hawk subdivision. Thank you for the opportunity to give my comments. We are against the vacation of our subdivision. My wife and I have been part of the subdivision from its beginning in 1998. The Hawks signed the subdivision plans at that time. So if lot 3 was a mistake, they signified their approval then and on subsequent boundary adjustments. Further, the cost of this mistake should not be our property protection. Protection from development is the very reason we wish to remain in this subdivision. We also oppose vacation because our property rights that the plat conveys, such as open space, development restrictions such as additional residences, and dark night skies, which would be neighbors' lights or a venue's lights shining down on our property, are important to me and my family. We're aware of the protections this subdivision has placed on our property for almost 27 years. Taking these away, which are granted by Delta County to give more rights, development rights to someone else, seems a little unfair, especially when it's based on a specious reason. Finally, the Hawk family subdivision should not be viewed as an inconvenient restriction to development. It contains the very rules that have helped to keep Missouri Flats a special part of Crawford country. This is the time and place to, as the planning department website says, protect our values and lifestyles. I urge you to keep this subdivision intact. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Tim Irwin?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Tim Irwin. I go by my middle name. I live at 42996 Needle Rock Road in Crawford. My biggest concern with this whole issue, and I've seen it again this morning, it is clear what the subterfuge is here of trying to find ways to be able to develop in Crawford, Colorado. I ask you, I urge you, I plead with you to remember one of the biggest values of Crawford, Colorado is peace and quiet. Now, there are people that would like to be able to benefit from that with a cheap little wedding venue. We've already got that. Now, I wouldn't bring this up today because I know this is about vacation, but it was already brought up by the party who is asking for the vacation, and that opens the door to be able to discuss it. But our biggest issue here, folks, is we are doing all of this in the face of what we built a land use code for. Is we are not islands. We are not individuals who get to decide for ourselves and take unilateral action on what we want to do, even with our own property, because we are part of a democratic society. We are part of a group of people who have agreed to get along, agreed to coexist. That starts with communication. Our community has not had one single opportunity to sit down in Crawford as a citizenry of Crawford, who the vast majority of moved there to take advantage of the most significant value it's got, peace and quiet. We have not had a meeting held in Crawford for Crawfordites to talk about a venue that is advertising 360 days a year of up to 300 people per day. Now, granted, is that ever going to happen? Oh, heck no. But the door is open. And once you open that door, folks, getting it closed again in the face of developers is impossible. Not just difficult, but we have not had the chance to talk about it. The rest of us, now their lawyer said, he doesn't have the right to complain. He's just a neighbor. I'm sorry, that may be true down in Grand Junction, and look at Grand Junction. It is the way it is because of that. We live in Crawford. It's not Grand Junction. We value peace, we value quiet, we value our dark skies. We value our chance to say as an American citizen, Heck no, I do not want a development next door, and I absolutely have a right to, just because I'm a neighbor, I don't have the right to say these folks can ignore our land use code and ignore the fact that we live as a community. And it's important whether or not our neighbors approve of what we do. So all I'm asking, at least let us have a meeting as a community in Crawford during a time when we can all get there, not 2 days before Christmas, not in the middle of a work week, because there's a lot of working folks in Crawford, believe it or not. Thank God I'm a retiree who can come down here and express my disdain over this entire process. I'm shocked being told I don't have the right to speak up. That was a Grand Junction point of view on a Crawford issue. Please give us a chance to talk about this. Thank you.
Jenny Holmes?
Hi, Jenny Holmes. I live on 42996 Needle Rock Road, also a neighbor. The only thing I wanted to say is yes, as far as due process goes, we have not had a public hearing on this, an open public hearing on this. It was scheduled for 2 days before Christmas at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It got canceled. It just keeps, in my opinion, keeps going around the public hearing and letting us neighbors state our concerns, because there's more concerns than just the land. There's lots of concerns with the 300 people wedding venue coming into a town of 400. So that's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Thad Schroeder?
I live at 43799 Cottonwood Creek Road. Just a few comments here. If the county allows the Hawks to vacate Lot 3, they'll be rewarding them for poor planning, not following proper channels, and not answering questions accurately on the limited use application. For example, number 14, they answered no to would the development be visible from a public roadway. It obviously is visible from a public roadway, and it's also right next to Needle Rock Natural Area. Other things the Hawks did incorrectly: built an event center and marketed it online before they contacted the county about permitting. They did not meet minimum requirements of land use code by ensuring they had water supply for their event center. They've been holding events on their property without the proper permits. For the last several years, they had 4 alone last summer. They have not gained 100% consent from other property owners to vacate Lot 3. And the only reason they're trying to vacate Lot 3 is because they were lumped into the subdivision by mistake, which I don't think is accurate. When really they just want out from under the plat restrictions so they can drill a well on the event center property. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Chris, I can't read your last name. Okay.
Excuse me. Chris Crawford, professional land surveyor with Wilmore and Company Land Surveying. I am working with the Hawks on their subdivision vacation process currently. And not to take away from everybody here, but that is clearly what we're looking at today. I agree that everybody should have their opinion and be able to speak about what goes on in their community. But as of what we're speaking today, it is simply the vacation of Lot 3. And so I just want to clarify that it was an error, and no one here is to blame, as none of us were in office or partook in any of this at the time. But if we can have the slide brought up of the original subdivision, if we could do that.
Give her a minute.
But what I'd like to point out there is that the Hawks, as has been shown and displayed, already had a 35-acre plus parcel in existence. Just by that alone, dare I say, it could be considered unlawful that it was even considered to be part of a subdivision, as by Colorado statute, 35-acre parcels are exempt from such processes. There was absolutely no reasoning for said parcel to be included in this subdivision process at that point. Now, if we look at, nope, not that one, Kate, the actual subdivision, the first subdivision.
The first one?
Yes. That one there. I don't know that you can zoom in at all. Can you zoom in at all?
I don't think not in this
presentation
mode.
Either way, if you look at the boundary between what is considered lot 3 and lot 1, you will see that there are some dotted lines. Those areas represent portions of the properties that were boundary line adjusted as part of this subdivision process. Typically, these processes are held by themselves in order for that, the boundary line adjustment would have occurred before the subdivision should have occurred. That did not happen in this case. Clearly, all the language and descriptions on there conveying anything for the Hawks distributes everything through a boundary line adjustment process. But then they were never given the chance or the notoriety on this plat to simply sign off on that portion, but were lumped into the subdivision dedication as far as their signature blocks. That is where the error occurred and why they were erroneously included in this. That is what they're trying to go back on. What they do after that fact is completely up to them. But this is the fact of the matter, is that they were in error part of this subdivision back in the 90s. And they have been unjustly under these regulations from that time forward, which has not become an issue until currently what they're doing now with their barn. And so that is just what we're after here, is trying to remedy what was wrong in the historical aspect of this over 30 years ago and set things correct under Colorado statute, as well as just common sense, goodwill of what should have happened. Thank you.
Next person that wanted to talk was Matt Jensen.
Thank you. I just reserved the opportunity to speak because I didn't know whether the conversation would be opened up to the
State your
wedding.
name and address. for the
I'm
record,
sorry,
please.
Matt Jensen, 42374 Cottonwood Creek Road, neighbor. I just reserved time to speak about the larger venue project. Has been stated several times today. We're just here to talk about the vacation. So I will wait to comment on the wedding venue when that opportunity is presented.
Okay. Larry Jensen.
My name is Larry Jensen. I live at 3497 Stearman Lane in Crawford. I am a landowner adjacent to this proposed venue. I've been a real estate developer in Delta County for almost 40 years. Once I figured out I couldn't make any money in the cow business, I decided to be a real estate developer. I would like to share some thoughts that I have on. I've always gone into the process thinking that when I plat a property, it changes the historical use of that property. I've lived under the concept that I am responsible to follow the restrictions on that particular plat when I merchandise and sell the property. Sometimes I've been denied on some of the subdivisions that I've tried to do for various reasons. A lot of them have been because of the neighbors not wanting to accept it. And I accepted those restrictions because I understood that they had a right to say it as part of the process. One of the things that you do as a developer is take advantage of what's on the plat to merchandise your property. Because of the knowledge as a developer that those will be the history of that plat. So if it says that there's no other development or there's no changes, that's what you merchandise to potential buyers, because they're seeing that on the plat as well. So both parties in that agreement are under the full agreement that that's going to be the history moving forward. I never got into the situation where I platted something thinking that I would vacate it later because I felt a moral obligation to the people that bought it, that was part of the agreement that we made. I think it would be the wrong move of the county. I think it would set a really bad precedent in the future. If you said, okay, you're gonna sell a piece of property based on a set of guidelines, and then 10, 15, 20 years later, come back and say, well, we really didn't mean it that way. We want to change it. And it was an error. We didn't understand it was an error, even though we sold it under that premise. To me, that's not a logical argument. And I think as a county, we would set a really bad situation for future development, because at that point, don't we open up the door by somebody coming back and say, well, I really didn't mean it, and so I want to change it? How would the neighbors be willing, or how would the new owners be willing to accept that? I think this is really a bad request, and I would really strongly suggest that you deny it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. There's several other people that put the name down and put no to speaking. Did anybody change their mind and would like to speak?
I would like to speak, but my name is not on the list.
Okay, go ahead and come up and state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Liz Heydrich. I'm the managing broker and owner of Needle Rock Mountain Realty. A lot of the people that sit behind me are my friends. I live at 41333 D Road. I need to sit over here. Doesn't matter. Okay. I'm late to the meeting because I sat in on the appointment with Mr. Geddes, the surveyor, after reviewing the survey plats that you already have. Specifically, two of the landowners that were once part of the survey plat are no longer part of the survey plat. And here I have a copy of the survey where they were removed from the survey and from the subdivision without signatures from the Shelleys or from the Hawks. It was done administratively. I think it sets a precedence for removal from the subdivision. And that is all that I really want to speak to right now. I will be at the other meetings. Growth and change are things that are going to happen. I ask that you all review this and look back at the history of how this came to be. And I will say only to my friends and neighbors and clients that I care deeply for that they are the greatest part of the change that has happened in our community. The ranchers that have made this application are aging. And like their parents before them that sold off pieces of property so that they could share this beautiful place with these people, I ask them to open their hearts and their minds and let go of some of the collective mob mentality toward this event center as we move forward with the process that will actually deal with it. This is about the subdivision. And these folks that were once part of it are not restricted to a single family home. They were able to apply for a well permit. They have the same history paperwork wise that the Hawks do with the Hawk Minor subdivision. Please look at this and consider this in your decision-making process. Everybody that might be mad at me behind me will have a voice in the future. This, whether the well be used for the event center or something else, should be a right that they themselves behind me had the right to do, and the Hawks also, to drill a well on their parcel of land that is 35 acres or more. Please consider this. I know I sat with Mr. Geddes. Back then, the rules would have not dictated that this be part of a subdivision. Someone cut some corners. Because the Hawks said to their sisters, Daryl said, the Shelleys are wonderful people, please sell them this property. And they wanted a little bit different shape of land and create a buffer. These folks right back here, if something bad happened to any one of their neighbors, they would be the first ones to show up to help. It is true. It is true. They would help if there was a crisis or something, but this is not a popularity contest. This is about vacating them from the subdivision and allowing them to drill a well for whatever it is. Because they were an isolated parcel on their own before, and they should be again. Thank you.
You brought up that plat.
Yes.
Are you submitting one?
I am, yes, sir.
What plat is it?
It's called the Fernfields subdivision. And this was once one parcel.
I understand.
Thank you, sir. You may keep it. Okay, I'm sorry. I was just trying to figure out on my own how the other two parcels got, and I sold one of them. And I'm proud to have sold one of them to some fine people that I love and adore behind me. And, you know, okay.
Part of the.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll leave this one with you. Is that okay? Okay, thank you.
Ms. Hydrick,
Yes, sir.
right here. When was the other lots removed from the subdivision?
This was recorded in 2011, sir.
And where are those lots located?
They are located further up on Cottonwood Creek Road. And correct me if I'm wrong, they were part of parcel 2. They once were parcel 2. Now they're 2 separate parcels. The Cockers did a series of quitclaim deeds, and then there was some sort of administrative thing. I pulled up a bunch of documents, and then I found this, which was the survey plat that it was transferred for. But interestingly enough, neither the Shelley signatures nor the Hawk signatures were on any of the documents removing them. I might be wrong, but that's the research that I found on my own in the public records. So in other words, the Hawks and the Shelleys did not participate in the removal from the subdivision. It was done administratively from what I can tell.
Interesting. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Anybody else in the room? Anybody on the computer, Lindsay?
No, sir. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Harold and Christy Hawk, you'd like to come up? And the attorney?
I would just like to make a couple comments. And I'm glad Miss Hydrick, is it? Brought this in. So the Fernfield subdivision, which looks like it was done in 2011, basically essentially removed lot 2 from the Hawks family subdivision. And what's I think important about that is Ms. Hydrick was right. It doesn't appear that the Hawks or the Shelleys agreed to this or permitted it, but the same restrictions on development do not appear on this plat. So what essentially Delta County has done is remove lot 2 and remove the same development restrictions on the Hawks subdivision. It didn't carry over to this subdivision. And so when we talk about precedent from some of the people that talked here, there is precedent to allow this to happen at this point in time. Furthermore, what Mr. Crawford said, the surveyor was correct. This was done in error, and Mr. Geddes supplied a document to that effect and a letter to that effect. In fact, Delta County's own land use code, I believe it's section 1 of chapter 12, says that 35-acre parcels or larger aren't subject to the subdivision requirements. And that's not only in the land use regulations, but that's state statute as well. And just for the record, it would be CRS 3028-101 10B also does not require parcels of property that are 35 acres or larger to be subject to subdivision requirements. Here you have a what is it, 60 some acres? Yeah. 60 acre parcel property at this point in time. And so based upon what Mr. Geddes provided, what Mr. Crawford has said, and along with the state laws, is that this should be removed and should not be within the subdivision. That's all that we're asking to do. When you hear about all this other stuff about we didn't have a meeting and we want to talk about this, that goes to the wedding venue. And that's not on the table. That's going to be down the road if they get there. And simply the request is to remove them from the subdivision so that they can go down the road and do what they may want to do. And it would make sense to do it in this case. It's already happened to one lot. They should be able to do it. And this lot is quite smaller. I believe these 2 lots comprise what?
They're bigger.
They can probably about 80 acres.
80 acres, so we have 40, roughly 40-acre lot sizes there for each of them. And it would make sense that this happens. And while the Shelleys did object, I do want to point out that the land use codes, if you look at section 6 of chapter 12, subsection B, it says a vacation of all or a portion of the final plat shall be submitted with a petition signed by not less than 50%, which we have, of the owners of the lots as shown on the final plat, and 100% of the owners of those lots to be vacated. So we meet the requirements for the county to do this despite the objection of the Shelleys. And if it's happened in the past, these guys should be able to do it now. The other thing I would say to you too is that they're talking about precedents and selling property. None of this property was ever platted, developed, and sold by the Hawks. They purchased it from their family. They had it. They were lumped in by accident. They never tried to develop this. They never tried to sell it. They've never done any of that with regard to this. They didn't put this on and had other people say, you got to follow it while we don't. None of that's ever happened. It was an error, and we're simply asking to correct that error.
Anything else? Okay.
The only thing I might say is I'm not versed in the legal parts of this or anything, but it does seem to me that as he alluded to, we were not really a party to this. We were our own entity for 11 years. And then it showed up on our taxes and we questioned it a couple of times and to no avail that why we were included in the subdivision. So that's my basic premise is we were our own entity for 11 years and then found out that later we were lumped in the subdivision through no consent of our own.
Okay. Thank you.
Couple questions.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Hawk, I got two questions for you. In the subsequent 20 years since the subdivision was developed and your lot was included, why haven't you corrected it before now?
Can I answer that?
Sure. Mrs. Hawk.
I did question it down here, I think Barbara Ball. I did question it, why we were lumped into this. I've questioned it 2 or 3 times over the past 20 years, and I was told it's not a big deal, it's just words. And so life got busy, raised 4 kids, bought more property, bought more cattle. Never thought it was an issue until now. And it wasn't that we didn't try, because we couldn't find the right path to go, or we would have done it earlier.
Then, thank you. My second question is, in 2011, when the Fernfield, is that correct?
Fernfield subdivision.
Subdivision was enacted, and lot 2 was removed. Why weren't you included in the signature on that?
We don't know.
We have no idea. We didn't, we were unaware of that. We knew when it sold, but we were not contacted about it, thought we had nothing to do with it. And we were never contacted to that effect. And never asked to sign anything, obviously.
And what's funny about this, and it's too bad this is happening, but I heard one owner of one of these lots object to these guys vacating their lot, saying they got to abide by it. But that gentleman that spoke today has been a beneficiary of his predecessor not following and not doing the proper way either. And so on one hand, he's objecting, but on the other hand, he's a beneficiary of it not following the process. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Thank you for your answers.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Callahan?
Please.
Going chronologically with what was brought up, I submitted to the commissioners that it's an open-ended question whether the Fernfield subdivision carried forward with those plat restrictions. and the commissioners can discuss with council. But Mr. Schroeder, who I believe is one of the owners of that parcel, one of the two lots that was split off of the Fernfields, just told me that he's on Mad Dog water, has never dug for the well that the Hawks are seeking access to through lifting of the plat restriction. And so to treat it as though it's a 1-for-1 or a good for the goose, one, I don't think it's legally accurate. I'm not sure that the simple re-subdivision of this simply negated the plat restrictions on the Fernfields subdivision. And so I would ask that the commissioners inquire of their counsel as to the position. I believe it's an open-ended question, and I submitted it with my correspondence. Next, the Hawks are correct. This is about vacating from the Hawk Minor subdivision. And regardless of the commissioner's decision in that regard, it should be noted to them that that plat restriction continues to be an enforceable covenant regardless. And so to negate the fact that they have future plans for what they hope to achieve off of their vacation, it needs to be understood from what I read from Mr. Powers with the state. He's looking for a response as to the vacating of the lot. If the Hawks take that as tacit approval, that they can go to Mr. Powers and say, see, now I can get the commercial well just because they vacated from the subdivision. I don't believe that's legally accurate. And I think that there's enforceability by third parties, regardless of the decision on vacating. And lastly, as to the erroneous nature of including the Hawk Lot 3 into the subdivision back in 1998, by their own admission in their letter of intent, that was a conscious choice to lump together two processes under the land use code at the time, which was to boundary line adjust and take the benefits of that, together with the overall subdivision process. And so it wasn't lumped in erroneously. They made a combo choice that was provided to them, and now they're bound by that choice. And so, commissioners, in closing, I'll just say the same way that you're not going to come out with a decision today that says we're giving back the county road that was dedicated in 1998, or that a utility provider that was given access and entitlements in 1998 can no longer access those properties. The plat restriction just doesn't go magically away either. And so that's the position of Mr. Crystal. And again, thank you for your time.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Callahan.
Sure.
So these plat restrictions you believe should exist in perpetuity forever?
That is, I believe there is a process under the land use code to seek to remove a plat restriction. And I direct the commissioner's attention to the replat process, in which if the administrator notices that a replat seeks the removal of a plat restriction, they can turn it over to the Board of County Commissioners. But that's an entirely separate process from vacating, and does require 100% unanimity among the subdivision owners, which the Hawks don't have.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Schroeder, is there your issue? Okay, okay. Well, we'll close the comment section of this meeting, and then,
I got one more question.
okay.
For Mr. Shelley, have you got a minute?
Do I have a minute?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'd like to ask you the same question I asked the Hawks is, in 2011, when the Fernfield subdivision was developed, why were you not contacted to?
I don't know. I was talking to my wife about that. It's like, whatever happened to lot 1 or lot 2? I have no idea. And I would have said, no, keep it in the subdivision. That place needs to be not developed.
Mrs. Shelley? If you're gonna speak, we need you to come up here, please. Thank you, Mr. Shelley.
They originally,
Could you introduce yourself?
oh, I'm sorry, Kathy Shelley, 43052 Cottonwood Creek Road. Lot 2, that 80 acres was sold as one piece before it was divided into 40 by the Cockers. So it was one whole piece. I don't know why we weren't, but I do remember some people owned it and stayed there for a while, and then the Cockers bought it in 2011. They, so I think it sold before that. And so it would have to go back to how that happened. But it wasn't in 2011 that it was turned into 240s.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, given the information that Ms. Heydrich has brought to us, and then just the amount of information that's been brought forward here, I'm gonna move that the board, table this to a future date so we can do the proper research necessary to make sure that, we've got the i's dotted and the t's crossed here before decisions made by this board.
Could we ask a few questions of staff?
Absolutely.
Are we gonna close?
Well, I've got a motion on the floor,
I'm
so.
sure you do. I'll second the motion to table. Given further research on this, I'd like to provide staff some more questions to answer.
Okay. It's discussion time. I think that's appropriate.
Okay. Motion is second on the floor, and do you want to do that discussion? Okay,
Go ahead. Or are you ready to vote?
I am ready to
Okay.
vote.
okay. All those in favor of the motion in second, say aye.
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 Aye. And we will pick a date and it'll be publicly noticed when that date and time will take place.
I would like to follow up a few questions here. Start with Mr. Bear. I'd like to pick on you anyway. The difference between a vacate and a replat, one of the big differences is the 100% versus 50% participation. Correct?
Commissioner, I mean, the meeting's been tabled. I would anticipate scheduling an executive session with the board to answer legal questions and give advice. There's been lots of information and comment made today, some of which is accurate, as I understand the situation. There's been lots of comment about the legal situation of this whole subdivision, also some of which I think is accurate. I'd like the opportunity to have an executive session with the board, as well as planning staff and our contracted county surveyor, to discuss, obviously, before the next public meeting.
I realize this isn't the answer some of you wanted today. Some of you wanted a conclusion to this today. But there are just far too many questions that have to be answered. I appreciate your time. I absolutely just cannot tell you how hard it is to make these land use decisions. Because no matter what, you are affecting people's lives, you're affecting people's property, and they are the toughest decisions we make sitting at this table. So I just appreciate everybody's patience and understanding as we move forward to make sure that we do the right thing for all parties involved. So thank you very much for coming. Go ahead.
You have one. I have one.
Go ahead, John.
Well, I was just gonna note only because Commissioner Suppes is a short timer with us, that the new meeting on this is likely to be after Commissioner-elect Fuller is sworn in. Terry, I'd like the record today to reflect that Mr. Commissioner-elect Fuller has been present for this entire hearing and has been able to hear everything that's been said today. Thank you.
John, I would like for the public to hear some of the questions I have regarding this.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
And I understand the executive session meeting. But we've got new information with Fernfield. We've got some legal questions regarding the replat versus a vacation on this. One of the big concerns I have, and I'm looking at Sean, Mr. Gardner, is the unintended consequences of setting a precedent or following a precedent here. And that would go for the legal part of this too, Mr. Bear. Ms. Heydrich said, you know, the people sitting behind her were people she cares about and their community. Well, they're sitting in front of me today, and it's hard, guys. This is hard. I have dreaded this day quite a while. Because these are decisions that, like Mr. Commissioner Suppes said, have deep implications for us. So I want to thank everybody for their input today. I hope you know we're taking it seriously. I am. This is hard for us. And we'll get back to you as soon as we possibly can because everybody has the right to a decision that's logical and can stand the test of time. So thank you on my behalf.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll take a 5-minute break and then we'll come back to our item on the agenda. Drive carefully. Okay, welcome back. Next up is County Attorney John Bear.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. I will try not to take it personal that the room cleared out. This is my agenda. Next one. I have one thing for the board's consideration this morning, and that is a resolution authorizing the purchase of real property and for the county attorney to sign the closing documents. That's for property located at 215 West 5th Street here in the city of Delta. For everyone's information, that is what is referred to as the old police department just across the street from the county courthouse. So what you have in your packet and before you is the resolution. This is very similar to resolutions you've seen in the past for similar situations that authorizes the transaction, authorizes the chair to sign the real estate buy and sell contract, which is an attachment, which is part of the resolution. And then it authorizes me as county attorney to sign all additional documents going forward to kind of facilitate and consummate the closing of the transaction. I do want to note that there was continuing emails and communication with the city of Delta, even after the agenda packet was sent to the clerk and recorder. So the contract that you have in front of you in the packet is accurate with the exception of two small changes. One is a clarification about the appraisal that is listed in para 6.4. There's a little bit of language added in para 30, which their para 30 is basically other things, right? That says that the appraisal is already done. The county already has the copy of that appraisal. And so basically the appraisal part of this has already been completed. The other small change is the closing date has been extended out further. I put 70 days after mutual execution of the contract. I can't remember what the version you had, probably said 35 or something like that. That's only to help facilitate for the city of Delta. They have to do, when they sign these, they have to do an ordinance, which requires publication in a certain amount of time and two readings and that sort of thing. So they asked us to kick that out a little bit. But other than that, the contract I have here today for your consideration and for the chair's signature is the same as what you have in front of you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I think we're good. We discussed this at our last meeting, and I will make a motion that the board adopt resolution number 2025-R-02, resolution authorizing purchase and for the county attorney to sign closing documents for real property located at 215 West 5th Street in Delta, Colorado.
And recognizing this is Don's last
Official action as a county commissioner.
second.
My apologies. You might have said is this number 2 then?
Yeah.
Yes.
Motion second on the floor. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye, so done. Thank you.
Mike can sign here. That signature is, let's see, buyer's signature and date, and you just might write chair.
There's nothing further to come before the board. We will stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah.